My name is Vildine Fincher, and I am the author of Coming Apart, The Layman's Guide to Divorce. Some of the questions that I'm often asked have to do with engaging an attorney. And one of those particularly asks, do I have to use an attorney, and what do I need to consider if I'm going to hire an attorney? Even if you're going to be able to have an uncontested divorce or a non-contested divorce, I highly recommend sound legal counsel to make certain that there's nothing that you're overlooking that may come back to bite you after the divorce is final. There are also a number of other points that are important to be able to consider. One of the things that would be good for you to be aware of is the question of conflict of interest. If the attorney that you're considering using has ever had any legal engagements with your spouse, whether it was a business dealing, discussing a previous divorce, whatever there might have been, if your spouse has been involved with that attorney will not be able to represent you. Now, sometimes this is an interesting thing to be able to use to your advantage. For example, when I realized that I was going to be going through a divorce, I made a decision about the attorney that I really wanted to use, someone that I really felt comfortable with. But I had heard about a particular attorney in my county who could make Snow White look like a whore. And since in this case I was Snow White, I certainly didn't want to have my ex-husband, had he heard of this attorney, I didn't want him to be able to use this attorney against me. So once I'd learned about this attorney, I made an appointment. I went and talked with the attorney, told him everything about the situation in my marriage, why I was looking at the divorce, etc., and shared all of that background with him. And then I went ahead with the attorney that I had planned to use. But I did make certain that should my ex-husband, who was my estranged husband at the time, had he heard about this particular attorney, I made certain that there was no way that he would be able to use that particular attorney. It's also important to know that an attorney can only represent one party. Now, if you're considering an uncontested divorce, oftentimes people will say, well, can't we use the same attorney? But once again, an attorney can only represent one party. And so if it moves from an uncontested divorce to a contested divorce, someone's going to have to get a second attorney. And the person who keeps that first attorney is the one that engaged that attorney. Ways to use this to your advantage: if you really feel comfortable that you're going to have an uncontested divorce, but if you have any inkling that something might turn nasty where you do have to have a contested divorce, and you want to be able to hire really the tiger, you may want to allow your spouse to hire the first attorney. And then should you need a really aggressive attorney, you hire the other attorney. Attorneys come in a wide variety of approaches to divorce, and you need to be aware that this is the case. They're human beings, and also need to be aware of just what your goal for the divorce is. If you want to have a really amicable divorce, that you want to have everything as totally cooperative as possible, you'll want to look for an attorney who's very comfortable in moving toward that type of a divorce. If you want an attorney that is fair, but you've made a decision that you are absolutely going to stand for what is essential for you, and there may be children involved, then you want to be certain that you get an attorney who is workable, but who is willing to stand firm and fight for you. If you want to make certain that your spouse in this painful situation is going to have as much pain as possible, there are definitely attorneys that will go for the jugular and will enjoy every bit of it. So it's important for you to have an understanding. What is your goal for the divorce, and what do you want from an attorney? I do have some information available with checklists about how to really select an attorney that will be useful for you. The legal process of divorce is governed from state to state. And so it's important to be able to know what the state laws in the state that you're in say about divorce. Yes, it is true that there are do-it-yourself divorce kits available, certainly at places like Office Depot, Office Max. You can download some of these forms directly from the internet. Part of the challenge is that these do not generally address the individual legalities from state to state. And you also don't have the wisdom of an attorney who has some background from state to state if you're just going with legal forms that you pull off the internet. I have often heard the argument that the only one who wins in divorce are the attorneys. And in my experience, have I seen some attorneys that bump up the billable hours, that really work at drawing a divorce out? Yes, I have. But I've also seen many cases where the lack of sound legal advice was both emotionally and financially really caused more problems than it would have cost to have had the legal advice up front. That's why I really think that it's important to be aware of the type of attorney that you want, be aware of the level of cooperation that you want, select an attorney that will really give you good, sound legal advice, and then do the best that you can to come to a cooperative ending. An engaging attorney for good counsel does not negate the possibility of your being able to arrive at a non-contested divorce. It simply helps to ensure you that you won't turn around and find that there were problems that were overlooked as you went through your negotiating and coming to an agreement with your spouse that will be problematic in the end. I do invite you to visit my website, www.thelaymansguidetodivorce.com. I have a series of about 20 videos that will help you with all of the different elements that you need to consider if you're looking at a divorce. And I also invite you to obtain a copy of my book, Coming Apart, The Layman's Guide to Divorce.